We've got Sean Spicer joining the show this morning.
The incoming White House press secretary.
Yeah, we're going to have to congratulate him on that job. We've got Ambassador John Bolton, who will have a lot to say, I'm sure, on everything going on.
And Mr. Larry Elder, who always has a great thing to say and understands how to get to the bottom of issues. He'll be fantastic. And we are watching what is known now only as the Eagle Cam.
Yeah, it's almost like elevator cam, but in this case, we've got some eagles being born down there in Fort Myers, Florida. Now, one of them, I believe, has been born.
That's a live shot right there.
Ed, you weren't here over the weekend.
Yeah.
We have been monitoring this
ferociously.
for days, but the first eaglet was born on Saturday morning during our show.
It was born on our show.
On our show.
I mean, it was
we were live.
Exclusive breaking news, eaglet being fed alive in the bird's nest.
I think we're still waiting for the second one, but this is what makes America great. We love watching this eaglet hatch. It's the cutest thing ever.
It's cute, but I don't know if it's what makes America great. I appreciate it.
President-elect Trump did not take a break over the weekend, diving right in about all those revelations about Russian hacking. He, has had this very contentious relationship with intelligence officials about what really went down with the hacking. You see him there with the incoming First Lady, Melania Trump, down at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend for their big New Year's Eve party. But he took a moment out there to talk to reporters, and he teased the fact that something big may be coming this week.
You have a tendency, just looking at it from the outside, to doubt American intelligence when it comes to Russian hacking. I'm trying to just better understand why it seems that way.
Well, I just want them to be sure, because it's a pretty serious charge, and I want them to be sure. And I also know things that other people don't know, and so they cannot be sure of the situation.
Like what do you know that other people don't know?
You'll find out on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Only the way that President-elect Trump can do it.
Yeah.
I know something that no one else knows. You're going to have to wait a few days for this. And now we're sitting wondering, what on earth could this be? Is this even related to the Russian hacking? For all we know, he can get out there and make some other announcement about jobs or something unrelated.
But he's alluding to something deeper, which is let's get the facts. Let's find out what actually happened. What's been released so far is utterly insufficient, incorrect. The report that was released by DHS and FBI has been dismissed by a lot of people. Let's not just say it was an election hacking by the Russians. Let's really understand what happened. Then we can move forward. And this Trump administration, I think in many ways is right to be skeptical of whatever Obama wants to say happened in light of the political lens. And that's not to say that our intelligence officials are politicized. We know Russia's trying to hack us and is trying to do us ill.
That's why he's walking a fine line, isn't he?
Yeah.
Because he has to be careful with some of the tweets where he's been saying Vladimir Putin looks smart. He's taking criticism from not just Democrats but some Republicans about that tone. And so that's why we've got Sean Spicer, as you mentioned, coming up live here on the show in the next hour. And he was on ABC yesterday suggesting the real problem here is that the Obama administration has not hit Russia hard enough. Watch.
In 2015, China took over 1 million records, sensitive data, people like me who had worked in the government at any time, classified our personal information, where we lived, things that we had written down on our applications or on our security clearances, and not a White House statement wasn't even issued. No action publicly was taken. So there is a question about whether there's a political retribution here, whether it's versus a diplomatic response.
So it sounds like you think these measures may be too much?
Well, no, what I think is
reversing them is on the table?
The president-elect needs to sit down with the heads of the intelligence communities next week and get a full briefing on what they knew, why they knew it, and whether or not the Obama administration's response was in proportion to the actions taken. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. We need to have that briefing first.
So he's hitting on, I think, the question that people have been asking for days now, and that is about the timing of all of this.
Sure.
Why, when President Obama knew that this was going on from the Russians, or if that ends up being the case,
Dating back to 2015.
18 months ago, even 2015, Ed, to your point, why now? How political was this move?
And was the response truly proportional? If you're saying the Russians hacked our election, are dispelling 35 diplomats and closing 2 mansions really the way to do it?
That's a huge deal.
Vladimir Putin clearly sniffed it off and said, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do the same. And it's not going to change his behavior. It almost makes us look worse because they've ignored it. You want a sanction to have an effect
well, remember how the White House
provides you an
itself
advantage.
ended. White House officials were saying a few days back, Vladimir Putin needs to cut it out. Cut it out. That's not exactly
Strong diplomatic terms. Yeah. Well, speaking of opposition in another form here at home, the Democrats are now making more promises about what they're going to try to do as the Trump transition turns into the Trump administration, vowing to make life miserable for Trump's cabinet picks. In fact, they've laid out now who they believe or who they'd like to oppose. Yeah, I mean, you can't oppose everything and everybody. You've got limited political capital. This is what Democrats signaled by Chuck Schumer, who they say they want to target. Rex Tillerson for Secretary of State for reasons we've talked about. Senator Jeff Sessions, Mick Mulvaney for OMB, and Betsy DeVos in education. And you can look at each one of those departments and say why that they're significant and what they might try to oppose.
Yeah, this will be the story, I believe, that will continue on for the rest of this week, because now the focus is this incoming administration. Who is the cabinet going to be? Who are the main players going to be, particularly the Secretary of State? That's arguably, with what we're facing today, the most important role that we have.
Israel, Russia, so many other hotspots, Syria.
And his relationship with Vladimir Putin, and they're going to try to focus in on that. But someone like a Mick Mulvaney, who's been a fiscal hawk, and has been very gone at the budget, they're going to work on education. They're going to try to defend Common Core. Betsy DeVos has said she's not for that. So there's going to be very stark ideological
part of this too, which is the New York Post has a report out saying that in private, President-elect Trump has been saying that he actually gets along better with Chuck Schumer, who's vowing to take on these nominees and make their lives miserable. He gets along better with Schumer than Speaker Paul Ryan and Senator Mitch McConnell. Remember, they were kind of lackluster, to say the least, in supporting him. And so that's going to be the big question as well moving forward. Schumer's going to throw out some bombs here to go after some of the nominees and keep the Democratic base happy. But is he going to cut deals with the president-elect on tax reform and other big issues? Somebody who says she now wants a seat at the table is Donna Brazile, the DNC chair. Now, remember, this is Donna Brazile, who, while she was at CNN, was working to make sure that Hillary Clinton got debate questions, town hall forum questions, and now she's saying, wait a second, all that should be forgiven. Let's move on. Let's turn the page. I want a seat at the table. Democrats should have a seat at the table with Donald Trump. Watch.
He has an enormous opportunity, as every president in the first 100 days, to show that, he's eager to find common ground, to meet with, Democrats. I've heard from Elizabeth Warren. I've heard from Bernie Sanders. I've heard from a number of Democrats that will fight. But there are also, other Democrats who are saying, look, put something on the table. Let us work together. Let's see what he will propose on education. Let's see what he intends to do in terms of Obamacare.
Here's the thing, though. This is not someone who just handed over questions or to help the Hillary team. You remember that interview with our own Megyn Kelly after one of the debates, and Megyn literally had the email that was written by Donna Brazile, to which she said, well, this didn't happen, basically.
No,
she was refusing that was actually the case. And Megyn said, well, I actually have the email right here in my hands. Let me read it verbatim back to you. It was a great interview.
And now she wants the seat at the table. This is exactly how the swamp works. Exactly how it works. They say, we oppose you, we lie about you, we send debate questions, but now it's time to put us at the table. So we're going to be good faith partners. Do you really think Donna Brazile and the DNC and the Democrats want to be good faith partners? Look at the two issues she just talked about, education and Obamacare. So teachers' unions and President Obama's signature issue, they don't want to be good faith partners on a solution. They want to protect his legacy or fight for the special interests that got them elected. That's a very different thing than working together.
Let's have a seat at the table. What did Maxine Waters, Congresswoman from California, say last week on MSNBC? I'm not even going to meet with Donald Trump. I don't even want to talk to him. Now Donna Brazile saying, oh, we want a seat at the table, want to work with this president. That's not what elected Democrats have been saying. They've been saying, we're not going to work with him at all.
That's a great point, Ed.
Complete opposite.
Full circle. So
By the way, I think you guys are trendsetters as well, because I see ABC doing this sort of diner type thing with Newt Gingrich and Don. I've seen both of you doing that for a while now.
This is basically what we do.
Giving you credit.
They're copy. I mean, they see what's going on here.
We're going to own the diners, though, Pete. We're going to continue to own them. But we do want to know what you think about Donna Brazile and others asking for a seat at the table. Should they be trusted at the table with President
Is there room
Trump?
at the table for them? Obviously you want bipartisan votes, but are they coming at it with the right intentions?
FoxNews.com.
Yeah, let us know what you think this morning. We'll read them later on the show. We do have some other headlines to get to this morning, starting with a Fox News alert, and now claiming responsibility, ISIS, for that New Year's Day nightclub massacre that left 39 dead in Turkey. The desperate manhunt for the Santa hat-wearing killer now intensifying by the hour. Police believe he is not from Turkey. The only American victim, a businessman from Delaware, shot in the leg. Listen to this, his cell phone deflecting that bullet, saving his life.
Crazy people came in shooting everything. I don't know. I saw one person there shooting. I'm hiding.
Unbelievable. Thankfully, he is expected to be okay. Investigators also releasing this grainy surveillance picture of the shooter, hoping that it will help catch that killer. And in the wake of that attack, police in California beefing up security for the annual Rose Parade, both at the football stadium and along the 5-mile parade route in Pasadena. More than 1,000 officers descending on the city to keep nearly 1 million people from around the world safe. The K-9 force deploying bomb-sniffing dogs trained to detect explosives. And a police officer fighting for his life this morning after being shot during a traffic stop. A major manhunt underway for that shooter right now, accused of opening fire on Oklahoma City officer Brian Sutherland, hitting him in the leg. Right now, police are reviewing dash cam video, hoping to get a clear description of that suspect. The only lead they have, the shooter's car was found abandoned in a nearby mall. And they may be twins, but these Arizona boys were just born in 2 different years. Sawyer Shea came into the world at 11:50 at night on New Year's Eve, while his brother Everett was born 11 minutes later at 12:01 on New Year's Day. The boys' arrival shocking their parents. They weren't due for another few weeks. That is so cute. A whole year apart. How funny is that?
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. All right, we've got a Fox News alert. We just told you about that terror manhunt for a shooter in a Santa costume. As these attacks become the new normal, what can President-elect Trump do to stop it? Well, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer here with that next.
And after watching and waiting all weekend, a major update to this bald eagle waiting on her babies to hatch. We're, of course, going to take you to the nest live right here on Fox and Friends.
With the stars and stripes and the eagle fly. There's a lady that stands in a harbor for what we.
And a Fox News alert, a manhunt still underway for the terrorists behind a shooting attack in a crowded club in Istanbul. ISIS now taking credit overnight after a gunman in a Santa hat opened fire, killing at least 39, injuring dozens more.
Well, are these the kinds of attacks, are they becoming the new normal? And what can President-elect Trump do to stop them?
Here to weigh in is retired Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer. He's a senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research. Lieutenant Colonel, good to see you this morning.
Good to see you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And this is obviously a sad way to ring it in, and just a reminder of what we face today. I'll ask you that question off the top. Is this the new normal? And if so, what do we do about it?
Well, the first thing we do is stop doing stupid things. Look, President Obama and his insane foreign policy, the high school debating team in charge has been horrendously bad for the world. He's created conditions in Syria, Libya, Yemen, and other places for terrorism to thrive, and we've got to stop it. That's the first thing. General Dunford and the Pentagon has been doing a great job in working in Iraq to try to push back ISIS there, so that's all necessary. We got to do more of that. Secondly, we got to work with the Europeans. The Europeans have allowed, for any number of reasons, especially Merkel in Germany, these radical Islamic groups to establish a foothold. And so one of the things we've been working on as London Center is looking at how we can enhance NATO. During the Cold War, we had to face terror as well. My first operations in Europe were undercover in the 80s, chasing terrorists funded by the Russians. So we've got to go back and look at the playbook of how we used NATO to effectively go after terror back then. So we've got to do both simultaneously, effectively, and we cannot neglect doing our own things here in the United States, but simply put, we've got to go to the source of terror to try to cut it off ahead of time.
Colonel, how do we get our allies, Europeans and others, to understand the depth of this threat? I mean, we have a news report today that they're looking at how to wire trucks in the government trucks so that they can be triggered and shut down if they're used for an attack, as opposed to understanding this is an ideology that wants to kill us. I mean, how do we change that mindset?
Precisely. The wall stated, you've got to change the mindset. You cannot go around and believe technology is going to be your savior. It's not. You've got to get at the root of this. And this is one of the things that Seb Gorka and Mike Flynn and I have always have talked about quite a bit. You've got to go after the root of the issue, which is radical Islam. You cannot pretend that radical Islam does not exist. I do believe that the whole philosophy behind this White House's denial of that's going to change very rapidly. But we've got to go after the culture. Simply, and by the way, we have allies within the Islamic community who do not wish to see their religion completely bastardized by the extreme radicals trying to run it now. So we've got to go to the cultural level, not the technology level, to go after this, and we can do that.
But, Colonel, if you were saying a moment ago that building up NATO is a key part of this,
Right.
We've got President-elect Donald Trump about to take office, and as you know, to say he's been a skeptic of NATO would be a dramatic understatement.
Yes, no doubt, and that's something that I think that Mr. Trump, I think, ratcheted back that quite a bit. One of the things necessary for both the war on terror and facing off against Russians. And let me be clear, the Russians are not good guys. They're not the ones behind the hack that they're being accused of, but they're not good guys, and Putin is a thug. We have to go at this two ways. We have to enhance the mechanisms within NATO to do intelligence sharing. That was done very effectively. It's never been done in the current war. And then use NATO to make it NATO 2.0 to make it completely effective. The British want to work with us after Brexit. They don't want to join the European Union army. They want to find a way to work with us. Yeah. We should take advantage of that, and I think Mr. Trump knows that.
Yeah, Colonel, how do you think that President-elect Obama will be judged by his handling of terrorism over the last 8 years?
But President Obama will be judged very harshly. I think anyone who looks at the record of what he inherited regarding the war on terror and what we've been left with, I mean, look, he actually went from essentially 2 wars to 8. This anti-war president is leaving more conflict for the guy coming in. Think about it. Yeah. So, and I've seen those traditional liberals upset about what the president's done. So I think it'll be a very harsh record, but I think we got the right guy coming in to take care of it.
Colonel, thanks for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Good to see you.
Next on the rundown, the former top cop of Chicago tearing into Black Lives Matter.
A movement with the goal of saving black lives at this point is getting black lives taken.
Why he says the group is sending a dangerously wrong message. Straight ahead.
And it might be the biggest scandal since Watergate.
Put these monitors on, please. All right, just for lambs to the left.
Watergate and Mariah. Now Team Mariah says they were sabotaged. We're going to look into this.
We're back with the Fox News alert. A car bomb exploding, sending thick smoke into the sky feet away from an airport in Somalia. Gunshots and another bombs heard moments after that first blast. At least 3 people are now dead. So far, no one has claimed responsibility. And ISIS uses them as weapons of mass murder. But this morning, scientists in the UK are secretly developing kill switch technology, preventing truck attacks like the ones that we saw in Berlin and Nice, France. It would allow authorities to interfere with a truck's electrical system to stop a hijacking. Those are some headlines this morning.
I don't think that's going to work. Anyway, college students from across the country coming together for Christ.
Your guilt and your condemnation and your shame, they're finished right here and right now. There is therefore now no more condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus. It really is over.
More than 50,000 students are expected to participate in the 2017 Passion Conference.
Here with more, Fox News radio host and the author of the new book, The Deplorables Guide to Making America Great Again, Todd Starnes. Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year, guys.
Good morning.
You know, this is an exciting conference, and probably one of the best things about it, there's no lip syncing here. So all of the artists.
You were working on that all morning. Come on.
That's good. Look, this is really an amazing conference. 50,000 millennials, the people that Pew Research back in 2015 said don't go to church anymore. Religion's not an important part of their life. These people are packing out the Georgia Dome for worship and Bible studies and really doing good deeds in the Atlanta area. I think it's really a tremendous thing that's happening.
Where does the idea come from? Where did this originate?
This originated from a Bible study back in Texas that Louis Giglio started. You might remember Louis Giglio. He was invited to deliver the inaugural prayer back, I believe, in 2012. So that small little Bible study grew into really a global effort. One of the things they do is they really try to fight these social justice issues. For example, human trafficking. That's a big push to try to stop that. They raised more than $8 million. These college kids raising more than $8 million to fight that effort.
What do you think is the biggest misconception today when it comes to millennials and religion? Because you mentioned it. We see the studies that basically say that young people aren't wanting to go to church anymore.
Abby, I write about this in the book, is that there is a passion among young people that they really want to go deeper into their faith. It's not just something that they do on Sundays. They want it to be a part of their everyday life. And I think we're starting to see that with the groups like Passion that are coming out in droves. These college kids spending their own money to help others. In addition to all of this, they're bringing tens of thousands of new towels and socks. You say, what are they doing that for? They're doing it for the local homeless shelters there in Atlanta. So again, doing these good deeds, and these kids aren't getting the headlines. You know, you can get a couple of hundred kids to march in the streets and burn down the city, wall-to-wall coverage.
That's a
but
great
you don't see
point.
this on the news, and I think we ought to.
Just showing up at the Georgia Dome, it's cool, that's great, but as you say, it seems like the good works that happen after the fact are more important.
That's right, and and what's happening afterwards. This is something that happens annually, and they wanted to go back to the Georgia Dome because the Georgia Dome is going away. They've got a brand new football stadium coming into Atlanta, so this is one big farewell, and I think it's a great farewell as these kids again are out there doing good deeds in the name of God.
In some ways, do you feel like the size and scope of this is a rejection against the current sort of trends of our culture?
I think so. I think kids are looking for answers. You know, they see what's happening, you know, on the college scene where conservatives and especially Christians, their voices are silenced. And yet at the end of the day, what the liberals are putting forward, what the secularists are putting forward just isn't meeting their needs. And so kids are out there looking for answers. And it seems like they're certainly finding them in groups like Passion. You know, Louis Giglio and his team, Chris Tomlin, one of the great worship artists, Hillsong United. You talk about Hillsong United. They have one of the largest churches in New York City. So there's something going on here, guys, and it's exciting that, you know, Fox and Friends covers these kinds of
I was
stories.
going to say thank you for reminding us of that, because we forget how important this coverage is. It doesn't get enough of it.
Thanks, guys.
Good to see you this morning.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, coming up, a law just took effect that says no work emails outside of work. Should there be a right to disconnect? We're going to debate next.
Then I don't have to research at all for the show. There we go. And breaking news on the most controversial piece of video since the moon landing.
Put these monitors on, please. All right, just relax to the left.
The moon landing? Maybe. Mariah says it was sabotage.
At first, we say happy birthday to Jack Hanna, the zookeeper, and our friend turns 70 today. Happy birthday.
I read what they put in the prompter. You know?
Well, Happy New Year. We can't hear, but I'll just get through the moment, okay? We didn't have a check for this song, so we'll just say it went to number one, and that's what it is. Okay. Feels like a I'm gonna say let the audience sing, okay? Put these monitors on, please. All right, just relax to the left. Just let me, because you know how to do it. And I want a holiday too. Can I not have one? I'm trying to be a good sport here. That was.
It's still so hard to believe. Come back, baby, please, 'cause we belong together.
Bring the feathers on. Yes! You just don't get any better.
Oh, just bring the feathers out. Just end it.
And the lift.
It was almost more
Let's do
entertaining
the
that
lift.
way. I mean, it actually was entertaining.
Well, there is a
Bad
theory
one,
out there that like it was so entertaining that it may be the highest rated performance ever. You just
Yeah,
can't,
so-
it's like a train wreck. You can't take your eyes off it.
So we won't get the ratings till tonight, but I think you're right, Pete. I think you can't stop watching in that moment because you're wondering what is going to come next. So the fallout now, obviously, her reps are up in arms. She's up in arms saying this was all a sabotage. Dick Clark Productions were out to get me.
Right.
This is an email coming in from Mariah's manager
and that it was
saying,
for the ratings. It
yeah,
could
they
be a
say,
ratings
you
stunt,
know,
yeah.
her inner ears were not working and your entire production team did not set her up to win. And Mariah kept telling them something was wrong on the stage in real time. They kept ignoring her. She took a hit honoring her commitment to you. I should have pulled her off that stage. This is sabotage.
Do you think Dick Clark Productions was tired of winning or something?
They might be. They're like 2017 is the year of losing. So
But who
let's
do they
just keep
blame?
moving it to.
Who do they blame for her outfit? Isn't that her choice?
They should blame
That
her
was
for
her
that
choice.
outfit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's her-
And
What
she-
about the guys who couldn't lift her? That was funny.
I know what was that lift. I'm not quite
All
sure.
right, let's do the lift. And the one guy
And
was
the guy's like, we're not
no,
doing the
okay."
performance. Why are we doing the lift? Who knows? I mean, the sabotage thing, if there is some legitimacy to the fact that she maybe couldn't hear, maybe it was the wrong track, we're hearing all of that. But this is one of the biggest performers of all time. She knows all of her own songs. Probably could have just sang it.
And she had a body double do the sound check, apparently.
True.
So maybe that backfired.
And she
on
had
her.
us remind her when she had to show up, because famously in the New York Post a couple of days ago, they asked Dick Clark Productions, her team asked, when does the ball drop? And we helped over the course of that day identify that it's close to midnight.
We reminded her of that.
At or around midnight.
I've known that like my entire life, right? You sit around Dick Clark when you're like 5 years old, you're like, what's going on?
So
she
we
didn't know
helped
when
her.
it dropped.
We made sure she showed up on time. We just couldn't make her do the sound check.
She did. She
Or
did show up
make
on
sure she
time.
did it herself.
You are nice, because it is a reminder. That's a tough job, being up on that stage. You have millions of people watching you. The pressure is high, but at the end of the day, this is what she gets paid to do. Even she mentioned that song that came on that she didn't even know the words to. That was a #1 hit.
But that's why you have a sound check, right?
You
Is to
think you step
practice
in
it.
and just
The
figure it out.
millions are watching.
You also, sometimes they throw to the wrong, we throw to the wrong video here, and you just kind of react, right? You don't go, I quit the show, I'm out of here, I'm done. You go, well, that wasn't the right clip, but we're going to deal with it.
Abby has a body
She can
double.
adjust.
She does rehearsals.
And no one's supposed to know that. No one's
That's
supposed
true.
to know that.
When we're trying to prep in the morning, she's not here.
She's not here. She doesn't talk to us. She's like, I'm
She
showing up
only
at
works from
5:59.
6 to 9, no emails otherwise.
In the contract. But you know what? She did tweet out, I believe yesterday, saying, stuff happens, and that she hopes that she makes more headlines in 2017.
Well, she started it out well, if that's her goal.
Stuff does happen. She's right.
Stuff does happen. Whew. All right, we do have some other headlines, believe it or not, to get to this morning. And we start with this more serious one. Chicago's former top cop tearing into Black Lives Matter, blaming the group for one of the most violent years in decades.
A movement with the goal of saving black lives at this point is getting black lives taken, because 80% of our murder victims here in Chicago are male blacks.
Well, it was a bloodbath year in Chicago. The city's homicide rate skyrocketing to 762 murders. That is more than L.A. and New York City combined. Oof. With the police chief blaming empowered gangs for those shootings. And a New Year's celebration goes completely awry when a man charges a police cruiser, hurling himself into the windshield. Watch. Whoa, well, that's one way to do it. You can see the 25-year-old drunk man running straight toward that cruiser before launching himself into the glass and climbing onto the roof. The 2 Wisconsin officers inside screaming for him to get down. The man arrested and then taken to jail. The officers were hurt, but luckily are expected to be okay. Man, that's rough. And take a look at this crazy picture. That is a plane that is upside down on top of a house. A pilot near San Antonio, Texas, making an emergency landing, aiming for a field behind the house, but obviously he didn't make his target. Instead, the 67-year-old clipping some power lines, flipping upside down, landing right on that roof. Thankfully, the pilot and 4 people inside the house were not hurt. Yikes. Wow. And thousands of Americans, I love this story, thousands of Americans right now keeping an eagle eye on this live camera, waiting for a second eaglet to hatch in Fort Myers, Florida. We witnessed right here on the couch the first one making its world debut live over the weekend, hatching right during our show on Saturday morning. And the second little guy is taking its time, though. No signs of any cracks in the shell just yet. I've been saying, watching this live is about one of the most all-American things you can do. To which Pete has said,
it's like
no,
seeing
I don't
America
agree.
born.
Like America
It
born,
is.
Right?
It is.
Yeah. America is born every day.
You're
It just
critical.
doesn't always have a camera. And listen, I love it. I do. I love it. I want to watch it. I want to watch more, but... And
that eagle
bald eagles hatched everywhere in trees around America.
You don't get to watch it
That's
live
good.
like
It's not
that.
like that's the only bald eagle left, right?
This is a
But
symbol of America.
I love it.
I'm baffled. You beat up on the failing New York Times every day, but you don't like the Eagles?
I understand Mariah Carey.
These screaming eagles. I love them. I love them. I just, I hope the second one hatches.
What do
I'm
you guys
really
think?
in
Is
for
Pete
it.
being too harsh this morning? Gotta love
Now he's
America.
trying to make up for it. I hope the second one's hatched.
That's,
he's
the couple you got to hedge, you got to say. But the first one's doing well. So, because I checked the cam this morning.
Yeah.
Oh, you
They're
did?
rooting for their success,
Yeah,
right?
I check it every morning. I'm just,
right,
not as invested.
You keep hedging. You come back. All right. A law just took effect that says no work emails outside of work. Should there be a right to disconnect? We'll debate it. Fair and balanced,
And
of course.
of course we will. No green card? Apparently no problem. This guy found another way in. Oh, gosh.
Ain't no drag. He's got a brand new bag.
Welcome back. We've got some quick headlines for you. Talk about a startling discovery inside a suitcase. Yes, A 19-year-old man is stuffing himself inside that very suitcase right there. A woman tried to sneak him into a North African area, in part into North Africa. It's an enclave of Spain, just hours into the new year, but did not get past agents. That's one technique. And a new study shows Christians are the most persecuted religious group in the world. The director of the Center for Studies on New Religions says more than 90,000 Christians were killed in 2016 alone. 30% of them at the hands of radical Islamist terrorists. The Italian research group will release a full report next month. Wow, powerful numbers.
Yeah,
over to you.
Meanwhile, a new law in 2017 allows people in France to ignore work emails when they're not at work. So if you're at dinner, don't worry about it. It's meant to end so-called hidden hours that employees are not paid for. So should people have the right to disconnect? We're here to debate. Psychologist Dr. Michael Woodward and employment attorney Richard Roth. Good to see you both. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Richard, you say this is a good idea.
It's a great idea. It's called the right to disconnect law. And the Labour Party in France decided that it's just because we are getting burnt out. That all they're saying is that you can still email over the weekend. You can still email at night. But the employer, only if you have over 50 employees, the employer has an obligation now to give you a time period to do it. 9 to 1 on Saturdays, 9 to 1 on Sundays. The reason why it's a good idea for several reasons, but I feel like Michael doesn't agree with me.
This is horrible. This whole thing is horrible. First of all, let's just put it in context. We're talking about France, a country that has a mandated 35-hour work week, as well as I think something like 30 days a year vacation. Now they don't want to do emails at night. So I don't think we should be taking our cues from the French to begin with. But second, how are you going to regulate this?
That's a good question. But Dr. Furr, let's start first with, isn't it getting ridiculous all around the world, including America, where you never can focus on your family, your kids, because you're on the device?
Are we, too connected? Yes. But do you legislate discipline? No. And I think we do need to teach. And look, I work with clients all the time. I work with a lot of executives who do have challenges around this. I totally agree there. But we're in a 24/7 globally wired world where we work across time zones and remotely. I don't think you can legislate times where you're working, times where you're not.
Here's why he's wrong. Here's why he's wrong. Number one is there's several studies that have been done in the world and in this country. In fact, one done by a professor at Lehigh, Virginia Tech, and Colorado State, which said we are getting burnt out. Enough is enough. We have to take some time off in the office. The second reason why he's wrong is because we do legislate. We have 40-hour work weeks. If you work more than 40 hours, you have to get paid under the Fair Labor Standards Act. So we can legislate it. Is it enforceable? We don't know, but it is legislatable. I mean,
so let me understand, Richard. So you feel like we're burnt out? Do you think everyone should get a trophy as well?
Not a trophy, not a trophy. But here's the deal: if your employer says I need something Monday morning, let him send you an email from 9 to 1 on Saturday, as opposed to 2 o'clock in the morning.
Sure, but do you want to restrict productivity? Like in this country, if we were to have a law like this? Hey, you've got small businesses saying we got to work around the clock to make this a success.
First of all, it only applies for people, employers with 50 or more employees. Second of all, it doesn't apply in exigent circumstances. And third of all, you're not restricting productivity. If you say, listen, I need you in Monday morning at 8 a.m., then send the email at a certain hour. It's not saying you can't email. It's saying we're going to have certain times we're allowed to email on weekends. Make it 9 to 1 on Saturday, 9 to 1 on Sunday. It's
so,
not,
Doctor,
it sounds crazy, but it's really,
I'm teasing
not.
Richard about the trophies.
Business problems don't happen during set hours and times, right? Business issues, shipping problems, customer service problems, they happen all the time. And so you got to be ready, especially if you're a smaller, mid-sized business, to be able to tackle those problems at any time.
But Richard,
you got to be all hands on deck.
He wants to take a nap. He wants to relax.
You know what? It's amazing how many studies have come out, and they keep coming out saying that. And
France is
blame it on the millennials if you want. But the bottom line is that there's a lot of studies out saying that we are being burnt out. It's causing anxiety and stress in the workplace. So if you know, for example, I want to have dinner Saturday night with my wife and my children, and I'm not going to have to respond to my employer, that's a good thing.
Gentlemen,
it's a really good thing.
At the very least, I want to compliment you both. Pocket Square game is strong. January 2nd, right out of the box. Way to go.
Thank you.
What do you think? Send us an email, friends@foxnews.com. Thank you, Dr. Woodward and Richard Roth. Still ahead. What will happen to the president-elect's Twitter when he takes office? A lot of people are wondering. We'll ask incoming White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer next hour. And it's the bag that could save your life. We have the survival kit that can get you out alive in nearly every emergency. Abby's got it. She's going to live longer than all of us.
Welcome back. Well, at a moment's notice, natural and man-made disasters, they can leave us stranded and in danger. Experts suggest that everyone should have a survival kit that lasts several days. So what are some of the tools that you have at the ready?
Well, the owner of Get Out Safe Family Survival Supplies, Frank DeMeo, is here to show us. Frank, thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Happy New Year.
Thank you for being here. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Third time on. I appreciate it very
Love
much.
that. Well,
Great
where
to
do
have
we
you.
begin? Because this is, as we've seen the terror attack in Turkey, this is on people's minds, you know, the reality that we live in today.
There are so many things to worry about. If you watch this station, as I do, there's a lot of things going from nature to terrorism to endless list.
So what do you do about it?
First of all, people have the misconception, in my opinion, that you need a bug-out bag. A bug-out bag is something you have ready to go. Where are you going? The traffic is going to be wall to wall.
Sure.
You're going to be like a fish in a bowl. In our opinion, you need to be able to stay in your house. That means having water, food, protection for a minimum of a month. In that month, that's when the chaos, the people that have laughed at being prepared,
Sure.
they're going to be knocking on your door. Hey, you made the
That's a great
mistake of
point.
telling me you had food.
You
I
planned
got
for
3
this.
kids to feed. Your best
So
friend
show us what
just
we-
turned into your biggest nightmare.
What do we fill our backpack in our home that will last for, as you said, 25 years?
Well, this is a 3-day auto bag. I highly recommend that you have this in your car. This is 3 days of 5-year food, water, first aid that I vacuum seal so it's fresh in 2 years. Wool blanket, the bag obviously, the life straw. That's 264 gallons of water from
almost any source. Those life
almost
straws
any
are amazing.
source.
You can drink
As
from
long as it
anything that
doesn't
purifies it.
smell like petroleum or have a sheen, you can drink out of
When
a
you talk
puddle.
about being stranded in your car for 3 days, some people might think, oh, come on. But in Atlanta, I recall about a year or so ago, this happened. People were
Exactly.
stranded for almost 24 hours in their
Exactly.
cars because of an ice
School
storm.
buses and
yeah, kids
just
were
not
yeah.
prepared for it. So in the car,
Backpack and you leave it there.
And you leave
And if
it
something
there.
happens, you're good to go.
It's
So
there.
This is an emergency food ration, 5-year shelf life.
5-year
How
shelf
does
life.
it taste?
It's apple cinnamon. It's very good. And bottom line is, if you're using that, it'll taste like filet mignon.
When you need it.
You know what?
Can I taste one of these?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I might keep this whistle on set to keep
I'm
the
gonna
boys,
leave you
to
the
keep
bag.
the men in order because sometimes it's really tough to round them up.
This tastes like a meal ready to eat from the Army, right? Is it a little bit like an MRE?
It's better.
Better. It can't be worse.
It can't be worse.
All right, let's let Pete try that, and I want you to talk about some of the tech items because people
Okay.
are
I've eaten a lot of this type of food in my
pretty
life.
good. Is it all right?
Yes.
All right. So what do we have here in terms of tech items, and what's this?
Tech items. Everybody's in fact, Judge Janine Piero did a hour special on EMPs, which I recommend to all my customers to watch.
If we lose the grid, we lose.
We are going back into yesteryear.
Right.
We're going to lose 40, 50, 60 million people the first week. All your pacemakers, heart monitors, oxygen, dialysis, surgery, all gone.
So what are these tech devices then?
You need information, obviously. That was the biggest complaint with Sandy. People didn't know what was going on. The big order, water, food, weapons. Your water, you have 5-gallon and 55-gallon food-grade barrels, so apartments
Yeah.
have
we got all
no
kinds of
excuse
stuff.
for not having
You've
water.
got powdered milk here that lasts, you said 25 years?
25 years.
That's a smart point. Water, food, weapons. Ultimately, you got to be able to defend yourself.
People are coming.
Yeah.
People are definitely coming, especially if you've made the mistake of telling people you have things.
Sure.
This food is very easy to make. Legacy is the only brand I'll sell. If I can't give it to my kids, I
25
can't
years.
give it to you.
That's a great point.
It's just the way
Frank
it is.
DeMeo, we've got to leave it right there, unfortunately.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate all of your knowledge
Very
this
good.
morning. Making
Thank
sure
you for
folks are
having me
prepared.
again.
You got it. Thanks for
Appreciate
being
it very
here.
much.
All right, still ahead. Did you hear what President Obama's right-hand woman said about the administration?
The president prides himself on the fact that his administration hasn't had a scandal and that he hasn't done anything to embarrass himself.
You heard it. No scandals at all over the past 8 years.
And
Really?
a huge show is still ahead. Incoming White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer and Ambassador John Bolton both here live in the next hour.
And we are keeping a very close eye, despite Pete saying he doesn't want to watch it, on Eagle Cam. One of the eaglets hatched over the weekend. The other one could hatch at any moment. We're keeping an eye on it because Pete doesn't want to.
Stay close.
I love that county line bar where they all know my drink. The way she throws her hands up when that cover band plays. I love the taste of her lips when she's been sipping that wine. I still get drunk on her every time. I love my small town world. I love a country girl. I love a Friday night.
Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, January 2nd. We are in 2017 now.
Yes.
Wow. I'm Abby Huntsman in for Ainsley Earhart, and we do begin with a Fox News alert. Breaking right now, reports of arrests in that nightclub terror attack in Turkey as ISIS is now claiming responsibility. And we learned the incredible survival story of one of the American victims.
Plus, the president-elect is back in New York this morning and promising a major revelation about the so-called Russian hacks.
What do you know that other people don't know?
You'll find out on Tuesday or Wednesday.
So what could it be? We're looking to get to the bottom of it.
And nothing to see here. President Obama's closest advisor, Valerie Jarrett, patting the president on the back for a scandal-free 8 years. Maybe she needs a reminder. Maybe we'll give it to you because mornings are better with friends. We got a monster show.
Yeah.
To kick off the new year, and we've got the incoming White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer in just a few moments to kind of lay out what's coming up in this transition of power, and Ambassador John Bolton, who's been all over these big foreign policy issues from Russia to Israel, everything in between.
Yeah, great insights at home and abroad, which is what we try to do, is cover every day.
And you think about 2017, we're in a new year now.
Mhm.
You know, and it really is, 3 weeks away from the incoming administration.
Yeah,
and
less,
all of these issues we're talking about are going to fall right in their lap. So some real important questions.
But we're also monitoring something that America wants to monitor, needs to watch, needs to see, and it is that bald eagle right there.
You're redeeming yourself, Pete.
I know. No,
because last hour you weren't
super
loving this.
invested in this. Yes,
This is a symbol of America.
It is.
It basically is America, and I've been reminded by our producers. I was with the 101st Airborne. Our symbol is the screaming eagle. I mean, it is this very
Why do you
bird.
think you were so skeptical of Eagle Cam?
I don't know. It's just live cams scare me generally, but now I'm into it.
All right.
An eaglet hatching scares
It
you.
hatched over the weekend for us. One of them did. So we got one eaglet being fed. You know, maybe we'll get to feeding time this morning.
Hopefully we'll get
and
the
we get another one.
second
Maybe
So we're
it'll be
hoping
born.
that the second one will hatch on our show today. So we're watching that very closely. We'll bring that to you as soon as there are any developments. But there's some other things going on as well. This morning, President-elect Trump is promising a revelation on Russian hacking as incoming press secretary. He suggests that he could roll back those punishments imposed by President Obama. Here's what President-elect Trump said over the weekend. He came out unprompted over the weekend and had this to say about that.
You have a tendency, just looking at it from the outside, to doubt American intelligence when it comes to Russian hacking. I'm trying to just better understand why it seems that way.
I just want them to be sure because it's a pretty serious charge, and I want them to be sure. And I also know things that other people don't know, and so they cannot be sure of the situation.
People don't know.
Speculation with this issue over the last couple. What do we really know about who's hacked and who hasn't? Will these sanctions actually be effective or not as Vladimir Putin swaps them away? I think everyone just wants to know, can we get to the bottom of this and get evidence? And it's been a bipartisan call, and I think that's what President-elect Trump is talking about. Let's find out the facts before we speculate, before we point fingers, before we decide that Russia's behind every corner.
Hey, come on, Sean.
He's promised to tell us
probably
everything.
in makeup right now. You're getting pretty. To think about it.
Give him
Give
the
us
heads
the
up.
scoop. Come on.
In about 17, 18 minutes, he'll be on with us. Yeah.
Right. So there's someone else that's out speaking. Donna Brazile, you remember her from the campaign.
Oh, we remember
she's been
her.
around a very long
forget her.
time, but she says that even though Democrats lost the election.
She's the DNC chair right now, still.
Right. That's a good point. She's saying that Democrats still deserve a seat at the Trump administration's table, and there is something to both sides coming together.
So she wants everyone to come together now, despite making sure Hillary Clinton had some of the questions in the CNN debate and town hall.
Right, so you remember
let's
denying
that
it,
and let's
when asked
come
about
together.
it. Yeah. This is typical stuff, I would say, but this is what Donna Brazile had to say on This Week about how Trump should be treating her opponents and what they want when they're sitting at the table. Take a listen.
He has an enormous opportunity, as every president in the first 100 days, to show that, you know, he's eager to find common ground, to meet with, you know, Democrats. I've heard from Elizabeth Warren. I've heard from Bernie Sanders. I've heard from a number of Democrats that will fight. But there are also, you know, other Democrats who are saying, look, put something on the table. Let us work together. Let's see what he will propose on education. Let's see what he intends to do in terms of Obamacare.
Look, on the bright side, she's putting out a positive message, which is maybe we could turn the page, maybe we can work together. But it's the opposite of what was happening in the campaign, obviously, but the opposite of what happened last week. Maxine Waters from California, a longtime Democratic congresswoman, was saying on MSNBC, we don't even want to meet. She said, I will not meet with President-elect Trump when he takes office, because I don't even want to talk to him. I don't even want to work with him. And now they're saying,
at least
oh, we'll
Maxine
work with
Waters is being honest. Like, I guess
That's
it's okay.
probably where
but this is
Democrats
what the
really are.
swamp actually does is say, oh, we'd love to work with you. We'd love to sit at the table. We'd love to. It's completely disingenuous. On Obamacare and education, at what point is she going to say, let's sit down with the teachers' unions and break down the cartel that they have over education? Or let's make sure, you know, Obamacare is fixed the way Republicans want. They're going to try to throw mud in the gears, and sitting at the table is a way to be to obfuscate and to confuse and to complicate the process. Bipartisan votes are good. No one's saying they aren't, but it's not clear that Donna Brazile has showed any desire to be a part of the solution as opposed to being an opponent.
That's the point of this whole thing, because the only way to move forward to get real things done, you've got to have both Republicans and Democrats at the table having real conversations on how to get that done, how to move forward. But when you're talking about someone like Donna Brazile, you have to ask that question, can she be trusted? Because it's not just a matter of her leaking questions. Remember Hillary Clinton back in the debates when she was with CNN. But then when she was asked about it point blank right here on Fox News by our own Megyn Kelly, Megyn had the email in her hand and she said, let me read this to you. She still was denying that even happened. So that leads to the question, whoever's sitting at that table, can they be trusted? Because, of course, you want all walks of life, all opinions, you know, on board
and
to help
We
us
asked our viewers to weigh in, and they're weighing in. In fact, on Twitter, Steve says, you mean like the seat at the table that Obama provided the Republicans when he said elections have consequences?
Yeah, that seat at the table for Obamacare, the 0 votes. Email from John, who said they just want to be there to keep President Obama's legacy going. Absolutely no way that they actually want to work with Trump.
It's an email coming in from Ann. No seat at Trump's table for them. It's the people's table.
No soup for you.
No soup for you.
It sounds like.
I like that. It's the people's table. And listen, there's going to be deals made. Nothing's perfect. The sausage making of Washington is difficult. But you don't have to go in saying what Republicans have done for so long is just unilaterally surrender up front. And say, okay, we want to work with you, so let's give away our campaign promises and water it down. What Trump has signaled so far is we've got a platform that we were elected on. We're going to go to do that, and if you want to be on board, great. If not, then we're going to fight you for it.
So one man comes to power, the other is leaving, or is he leaving? Is President Obama going to stick around? A lead story in the New York Times. GOP leadership poised to topple Obama's pillars. Number one, that may be why he's racing up to Capitol Hill, President Obama, this week, to huddle with Democrats privately, figure out how to, quote-unquote, save Obamacare, and why the president, over the weekend, was taking what you might call a victory lap, his version of the last 8 years.
Just 8 years ago, as I prepared to take office, our economy teetered on the brink of depression. 8 years later, you've told a different story. We turned recession into recovery, poverty is falling, incomes are rising. Almost every country on earth sees America as stronger and more respected today than they did 8 years ago. And to keep America moving forward is a task that falls to all of us. And as I prepare to take on the even more important role of citizen, Know that I will be there with you every step of the way to ensure that this country forever strives to live up to the incredible promise of our founding.
Well, there's just a lot of what a lot of people would describe as delusion there, the sense that the world is a better place. They've lost over 1,000 seats in legislatures across the country because people have rejected this agenda. Yet he says countries around the world respect us more than they did before. Find me one.
He has a much harder case on foreign policy, right, in terms of when you look at the disaster in Syria and elsewhere, our relationship with a key ally like Israel. It's hard for him to make that case. On the economy, though, he can make the case that when he came to office, it was in a free fall, and he has created millions of jobs. So
without the growth that you normally see.
He didn't create those jobs, but when you're president, you can take credit for that.
Well,
he can at least make
always will.
Yeah, well, we've talked about this election, obviously, so much on the show, but many of the mainstream media got it wrong. The pollsters got it wrong, but there are also folks that are in denial about this election and that the fact that Mr. Trump won, including members of President Obama's team. You remember that photo we saw of them crying in the background, like, we can't believe this is ending?
Well, the Rose Garden.
The Rose Garden. Well, Valerie Jarrett was on CNN, and she was talking about the last 8 years and how it has been scandal-free and how special that is. Here's what she said.
The president prides himself on the fact that his administration hasn't had a scandal and that he hasn't done anything to embarrass himself. But that's not because he's being someone other than who he is. That's because that's who he is. That's who they are. And I think that's what really resonates with the American people.
When we heard that, we did intense 7 seconds of research on the back of a napkin, and we're able to cobble together these non-scandals of the last 8 years. You can read them yourself. Fast and Furious, Benghazi, IRS targeting, mass surveillance, the seizing of journalists' records, which I had forgotten about completely. How about the Bo Bergdahl swap for 5 terrorists? A Secret Service scandal, Clinton email scandal. I mean, you could read them, you can see them. Scandal list shows you how deep in the bubble Valerie Jarrett really is. I mean, what else can you say?
Wow.
You
that
can
just
say
that
wow.
you
Or
just laid
nothing.
that all
Just
out
wow.
over the past 8 years.
But it was 7 seconds of napkin research, and that's what it took.
You know, though, of course his team is going to say that because
But
you know
why-
they're
why
going to
no-
stand by him and they want to make it sound like it was the
say
best
that?
8 years of their life.
Why go all the way and say no scandals? Why not say, listen, we've made mistakes, but we feel good about the upside and whatever, you know, the argument. You can acknowledge the fact that you're not perfect.
They've
and
always
still
seemed to
have
make
upside.
a carve out, the Obama team, that he didn't have any personal sort of financial scandal, like something benefiting him. I'm not saying that justifies or changes the list you laid out, but that there's no like Clinton Foundation thing where he was pocketing money kind of thing. They make that carve out. Again, I'm not saying that that justifies the claim that there were no scandals. These were clear embarrassments for the administration. If they say, I think Valerie Jarrett, if you look at her words carefully, said he hadn't personally embarrassed. There wasn't something he had personally. This is decisions he made, moves by his administration that were embarrassing. They tried to make that carve out.
Yeah, but you know what the biggest message of all in all of this is the direction that the American people want to move in. And that is a sign to everyone that they want to move in a different direction than the past 8 years. I think that's how you have to look at this whole conversation. All right, we do have some other headlines to get to this morning. Starting with this breaking news, this Fox News alert, the Turkish media now reporting 8 people are under arrest in connection with that New York nightclub terror attack. The New Year's terror nightclub attack in Istanbul put the gunman still is on the run this morning. Overnight, ISIS claiming responsibility for that attack. It left 39 people dead. Nearly 70 others were hurt. The only American victim from Delaware shot in the leg. Listen to this. His cell phone deflecting that bullet, saving his life.
Crazy people came in shooting everything. I don't know. I saw one person there shooting. I'm hiding.
Wow, well, investigators releasing this grainy surveillance picture of the suspect, hoping that it will help catch him. There's also this terror fears overseas hitting a fever pitch here at home. Police in California now beefing up security for the annual Rose Parade, both at the football stadium and along the 5-mile parade route in Pasadena. More than 1,000 officers descending on the city to keep nearly 1 million people from around the world safe. The K-9 force deploying bomb-sniffing dogs trained to detect explosives. And quit the UN. That is the message from Sarah Palin to President-elect Donald Trump, the former Alaska governor, making this recommendation after the Security Council's vote on Israeli settlements. Listen.
By exiting the UN, where injustice is actually rewarded, we then will be able to uphold America's reputation as a leader and as the kind and compassionate and generous nation that we are.
Palin also said we, the people, need to rise up and regain control of national affairs and make our elected leaders work for us. And it was a wild last day of the NFL season. Another magical performance by quarterback Aaron Rodgers, helping clinch the NFC North for the...
Well, conservative paranoia is running wild. At least that's what the left believes. But a brand new survey is turning that theory on its head. A recent YouGov Economist poll found that 87%, look at that number, of Hillary voters believe Russia hacked Democratic emails in order to help Donald Trump win. And when asked if Russia tampered with U.S. vote totals, something that even President Obama has said didn't happen, half of Clinton supporters believe it, while Trump supporters were much more in touch with the truth. Guy Benson is a political editor for townhall.com and a Fox News contributor. Guy, if you would, just out the gate, explain those numbers as best you can for me.
Hey, Pete, sure. Yeah, so this was the survey from YouGov asking Americans generally about a series of questions that they determined to be sort of conspiracy theories. And this one was about Russia's hand in the election. So the first question that you referenced was, did the Russians hack emails at the DNC and elsewhere with an eye to influence the election, sort of election-adjacent hacking, if you will? And a vast majority of Democrats and Hillary supporters said, yes, they did. And there's basis for that. The CIA and the FBI would agree with that assessment. So that's reasonable. But then there's that second question where things get into sort of shady, murky territory, where about half of Hillary supporters and slightly more than half of Democrats generally believe that the Russians actually hacked the vote totals, which is totally baseless and false. That's a conspiracy theory that a majority of Democrats believe.
Sure. So, Guy, tell me this. If you listen to the mainstream media, this whole fake news phenomenon is a phenomenon exclusively of the right. Why is the assumption that it's the right that believes fake news and everyone else has got it right?
Because it's bias. Both sides do this. Partisans will reflexively believe things that they want to believe that further their narrative or their predetermined biases. And this, of course, exists on the right as well, but it's not solely the province of the right. It occurs on the left, and this is just one example. And, Pete, I love that you brought up this whole fake news panic that we've gotten from the mainstream media and from the left, because this is partially, that data point that we just talked about, is attributable to fake news. I cannot tell you how many times I would sit and read headlines or look at lower third graphics on cable news networks, not this one typically, that used kind of shorthand about the Russian hack story and said the Russians hacked the election or hacked the vote. That is conflation. That is lazy and sloppy reporting, and it has no basis in fact. As you say, even President Obama has confirmed that there's no evidence of that.
That's right. No, the failing New York Times, as our president labels it, and I like to as well, had a headline on Friday that said election hacking. You're exactly right. The shorthand, the conflation is just that. Here we are, a couple of months after the election. How close are we to any self-reflection amongst the media that, hey, maybe they got it wrong, maybe they are biased? Have you seen any indication that that's happening and that they're reaching people in middle America?
No. I mean, maybe in some individual cases, but the media is going to keep doing what they do. The left clearly is not making almost any sort of pivot whatsoever. And they're going to keep sitting around saying, oh, it's fake news that cost us the election. It's Russian hacking. And if you want to create a little bubble world for yourself, I guess that's one way of sort of arranging a coping mechanism for yourself. But that's not going to help you see the facts as they truly exist, which is Donald Trump won the election. There was no hacking of the vote totals. And to say otherwise is simply false, fake news.
Sure, and maybe the policies you've been proposing haven't worked and influenced people's lives the way we wanted. So
maybe so.
Maybe so, Guy. Hey, thanks for joining us this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You got it. All right, the president-elect back in New York this morning, where he's promising a major revelation about those so-called Russian hacks.
Like what do you know that other people don't know?
You'll find out on Tuesday or Wednesday.
So what could it be? We're going to ask incoming White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer live next. And a New Year's Eve celebration goes off the rails when right there, a drunk man swan dives into a car windshield. Did he mention...